Well, unfortunately, we couldn't get any new players through the door here at Lokomotive Leipzig going into the second half of the season. So today we just focus on the on-field action in the Bundesliga, just 1 point away from being inside of a European spot. And we take on third place Wolfsburg before a team in relegation danger in Borussia Mönchengladbach. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 67 of Leipzig Loko with Lokomotive Leipzig here on Sean Does FM. I hope you are doing well, and coming up today we played two Bundesliga games at the start of February. First up, a trip away to take on a Wolfsburg team who are up in third and did beat us 3-2 at home earlier this season, and off the back of that we take on the team who we got the job done over in the third round of the DFB Pokal yesterday in Borussia Mönchengladbach, albeit yesterday, of course, they did get a red card. So if you're looking forward to those two games coming up in today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. But in yesterday's episode, we played our first two games back from the winter break, that cup game, as well as taking on Borussia Dortmund in the first one back from the break in the Bundesliga, where Yusufa Moukoko went absolutely haywire on us. If you missed the episode, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. We've actually played a few games since then, also had transfer deadline day. We'll cover that off first, because we actually did absolutely nothing new, no ins and no outs at all, just the same squad that we did have here previously at Lokomotive Leipzig. Did actually think about trying to get Jordan Zirkzee in a little bit sooner, because he has recovered from that injury when we did sign him for next season in yesterday's episode. But unfortunately, to do that would have needed to sell Salah Ula Imhan, and unfortunately no one came in with a bid for him. So in the end, we couldn't quite get Jordan Zirkzee here early to be the backup to Daniel Cueto, and we didn't do anything more in the transfer window off the back of yesterday's episode. Did try and get a few central defenders in for the start of next season as well, but unfortunately when we put those bids in for them to sign them at the end of their contract, their current clubs renewed the contracts with them anyway, so that was a little bit frustrating, especially in and around transfer deadline day. You would have thought those clubs would have sorted out those situations sooner, so unfortunately no new players are here at Lokomotive Leipzig. It does mean we've got the same squad as we had at the start of the window. So going over and having a look at our form off the back of yesterday's episode, that 5-0 thrashing against Dortmund in the Bundesliga, and then that 2-0 win over Gladbach in the third round of the DFB Pokal. First up, a pretty boring draw, honestly, against Stuttgart at home. It was 0-0. As you can see, though, it should have been a game that we picked up the points from. We had a lot more shots and shots on target, but somehow couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. Stuttgart, despite the fact they had about half the shots as us, did actually have quite a high XG. It was a bit of a weird watch in terms of the match change, but in the end, no goals were scored, and we get a point, which honestly didn't feel that bad. Of course, we lost to Stuttgart in our second game of the season, and off the back of that 5-0 loss to Dortmund prior in the league, it did feel good to pick up some points. Off the back of that, we took on Freiburg. This was a game that we did just do enough to pick up a win, and it was a game yet again, but we were on the front foot, and this time the stats a lot more even. But as you can see through XG, we were just the better team. Got a goal with 25 minutes left through dribbling off the bench. Then we conceded one very late, but dribbling again, and very, very deep injury time, he picked up a winner. So Tyler Dibbling coming up big for us in that one off of the bench to give us all 3 points. And then we went back home and took on Hertha Berlin, a team we beat 2-0 away from home earlier this season. And we were battering them in the first half, yet somehow went down 2-0 after 8 minutes. There were a lot of highlights inside those first 10 minutes. 2 counter-attacks, and Hertha Berlin put the ball in the back of the net 2 times. Thankfully, we did escape with a draw. Albin Krasnicki with a goal at the half-hour mark, and then Daniel Cueto making his way back from injury with the winner with only a few minutes left. As you can tell by the XG, we were definitely the better team in this game. Thankfully, we got something out of it. It would have been hard to stomach if we didn't get a point out of that game. So what that means for the Bundesliga table at the moment, we are down in ninth, so we'll slip down that table a little bit off the back of yesterday's episode, but only 1 point off Hoffenheim, who are up in 6th spot, and they have played a game more than us, Freiburg and Eintracht Frankfurt, so it's still quite tight in that European race, despite the fact our form since coming back from the winter break in the league has been a little bit average. And of course, we are now really looking at a European hunt. 7th place in the league is actually a Conference League playoff spot, so 7th place will be enough for Europe. It doesn't show there on the league table. It's taken me a while to check this, but I didn't really think we'd be featuring in a European race this season. So now that we are in the second half of the season, before I better bring this to you guys, there you can see the prize money as well. No difference between 8th place and 15th place. So if we miss out on Europe, there isn't really much point on overachieving in terms of prize money, but we should be getting a decent chunk, because I think it's fair to say now we shouldn't be involved in a relegation battle, and we are certainly still right in the hunt for at least that Conference League playoff spot, albeit that could be dependent on who does win the DFB Pokal, and that is the other news that we've got off the back of yesterday's episode. We've got the draw for our quarter final. It's a very kind draw as well. We take on Arminia Bielefeld from down in the 2 Bundesliga, and that game's at home as well, so they'll be coming up first up in tomorrow's episode. I'd like to think that's a game we should be strong favourites for, and we're also helped out by the fact that Eintracht Frankfurt, the team who have won this competition the last 2 years, they take on Bayern Munich in one of the other quarterfinals. So in that regard, one big team will be going home. The other ties, Bayer Leverkusen take on Fortuna Düsseldorf. That's another battle between 2 Bundesliga teams, and then Wolfsburg, they have a pretty kind draw as well, albeit they are away from home, taking on Jan Regensburg, also from down in the 2 Bundesliga. So hopefully tomorrow we can make our way through to the semi-finals of the DFB Pokal for the first time. But today we focus on the Bundesliga and hopefully keep ourselves in the hunt for one of those European spots, which would be some achievement in our first season up in the top tier. And first up today, we do take on a Wolfsburg team who are actually on top of the Bundesliga going in to the winter break. Unfortunately, since then, their form hasn't been too great. Lost to Bayern Munich first up from that break. Since then, have picked up a couple of okay results, but also most recently did lose to RB Leipzig. Those guys are certainly back in form off the back of a bit of a rough start to this season. But Wolfsburg beat us earlier in the season 3-2 at home, and that was a very topsy-turvy game. It did feel a little bit harsh, and with this one being away from home, it's probably a game we'd be doing well to get a point out of, especially because we are still dealing with a couple of injury concerns. We've got some players who are back. Daniel Cueto and Benjamin Bushuari, they are back from injury, but as you're about to see, only recommended for 45 minutes per match. Hopefully that might change by the time we get into that second game today against Borussia Mönchengladbach. And as well as that, we have picked up a fresh injury to Yuri Bas, pulled knee ligaments. Hopefully he might also be back for that second game of today's episode. But our backup left back, who had actually been doing quite a good job in place of Dorenzo, who had been quite injury prone of late. Unfortunately, he's now back in the team because Yuri Bas cannot be an option, but it does mean we've called up from our B team a player we did sign earlier this season in Vaclav Fiala. He is the bench option at left back, but those are our changes going in to today's episode. As you can see, still got Imhand in the cam role and a Tilgan in that left wing role because of those minute limitations to both Cueto and Bushuari. But apart from those changes, we are at full strength, so hopefully we can pick up some decent results, especially in that second game of today's episode. But first up, we take on Wolfsburg, and hopefully we can get some revenge on these guys after it did kind of feel like they pinched some points off us in one of those games earlier this season. Hopefully we can do a decent job in this one away from home. To be fair, our form away from home recently has actually been quite good. We haven't won a Bundesliga game at home since early November. Of course, we did have that winter break, but still, that's a little bit of a concern. Our home form is being brought up by the media in the pre-match interviews. Everyone coming into this game does seem quite happy. Also, Isaac Pinchard makes his way onto the bench for this one. That is because Mikhail Chaiwa is suspended for the previous game. Racine Bullock was suspended, so we are having to rotate our ball-winning midfielders quite a bit at the moment, but this will be a game we're not expected to get too much from. As I said earlier, that second game against the team we beat in the DFB Pokal yesterday does look a much more winnable game, especially because they continue to really struggle. If we do hand them a defeat, they might fall into that relegation zone, and it might be someone like Mainz who does come up out of that zone over them. So that would be very interesting for a club like Borussia Mönchengladbach. But we'll eventually make our way through this pre-match interview and have a look at what the Wolfsburg formation does look like. It is still a 4-2-3-1 and pretty similar lineup to what they put out against us early on in this season. You saw our team before. Imhan still the cam, Tilgan still left wing, and apart from that, we have got, of course, the newbie at left back on the bench in place of the injured Bas. As you can see, a win here would really get us right into that European fight. We're already not that far out of it, apart from the fact that goal differential got hurt quite a bit in that Dortmund game yesterday. But in terms of points, a win here would do us a world of good, albeit Wolfsburg definitely will be the favourites going to this game. Early highlight here did look like it might be in our favour. Unfortunately, though, we were a bit loose on the ball from that throw, but thankfully win it back, and Tilgan plays a nice ball forward there for Amadori. It's a massive chance, but unfortunately his shot is incredibly weak. It takes a deflection and sits up nicely for the Wolfsburg goalkeeper. But a good start for us there. Unfortunately, Amadori can't quite make the most of it. I have noticed in this year's game, quite often those chances, they're not taken very well. The shots get very weak from those tight angles with a open net. But coming up to the 20-minute mark, there is another highlight. Free kick in our favour. Unfortunately, can't quite link up with Caminio at the far post, and Jens will pump this one deep, and it will fall to Datro Fofana. Very easy for them there to get in behind and a missed tackle. Now Datro from a tight angle does get a shot off. Thankfully, it comes off the post, and we can clear that danger. That would have been a very soft goal to concede. Now Trafford gets them back on the attack, squares that one. Thankfully, Tom Gall with a massive tackle on Susic does stop that ball from going into the back of the net, and we are still locked up at 0-0. But there is now one good chance to either team, and they're pretty good chances as well. Actually, you could argue there that Wolfsburg actually had two chances with that highlight. We did just see now down the other end for a free kick. Unfortunately, we get a header on that. It does go over the bar, but fair to say so far, this has been quite an even game. Somehow, our XG is actually a little bit higher than the home team. And making our way into the last 10 minutes of this one, we do have a free kick just inside of our own half. Nice ball over the top there, though, for Albin Krasniqi. Escobar picks him out beautifully, and he beats their goalkeeper at his near post. And we do take a 1-0 lead here away from home, which is a little bit surprising, truth be told. At that big chance earlier through Amadori, Bullock plays this one back to Escobar right on the halfway line, unleashes the ball over the top. Krasniqi takes a touch, and that's a nice finish just inside of that near post. And off the back of some good chances to both teams, we might go into the sheds here with a 1-0 lead, albeit there might be one more highlight here before half-time. Escobar takes that throw-in down our left-hand side. Now it's being played out there to Tom Gall. Starts to inch his way forward, but plays that one back to Ivizic in goal. Thankfully, hasn't hit a shocker like he did in that Dortmund game. Since yesterday's episode, we find Bullock lots of space here down our right-hand side. Krasniqi shuffles that one on to Campanelli. What can he do? Puts the ball into the mixer. Unfortunately, it's cleared away, and Wolfsburg might actually get a chance here on the counter-attack. Andre Silva squares that one nicely for Jonas. Win back out for Silva towards the edge of the box. They're just holding the ball here in dangerous areas. They find Susic with a big chance again, but thankfully he blasts that one over the bar, and hopefully that's all she wrote for the first half. Indeed it is. It was a very to-and-fro game, as you can tell by the stats. We've slightly had the better of things in terms of shots and shots on target as well as XG, and thankfully through Albin Krasniqi just make the most of it and go into half-time with a 1-0 lead. So far actually pretty happy with how this one's going. Don't think we need to make any substitutions just yet, albeit Amadori is only on a 6.5, but we'll give him some time to try and fix that early stages in the second half. Pretty happy off the back of grabbing that late goal to put us 1-0 in front. We'll tell the guys it's going well, but they're capable of better, and hopefully we might even kick on a little bit in the second half and hopefully grab a cushion goal to pick up what would be 3 massive points from this one as we get the action back underway here away from home. Just waiting here for our first highlight of the second half, but so far it's been a bit quiet, albeit Wolfsburg are getting quite a few shots off early. They now lead that count, but still not that many on target. Just as I say that, they do get one, but coming up to the hour mark now, I think it's time for us to make our first substitution. Amadori is only going okay on a 6.4. Thibaut Clige can come on for him, and we'll get the action back underway off the back of that first substitution. Still 1-0 up with a half hour left. As you can see, Wolfsburg are getting on top of us a little bit more here in the second half, but so far no highlights. That suits us just fine. Going forward another 10 minutes now. Quite a few players are down to red hearts. We'll make a few subs at this time. Bushuari at left wing, of course, he's coming back from that injury. Good impact from the bench. Also dribbling out right, and Benedetti in place of Escobar, so they'll just leave one sub for the last 20 minutes of this game. We might not wait too long to make that if another player goes down to a red heart for around about 15 minutes left, but we'll just adjust some opposition instructions and now see if there's going to be a highlight before that stage. And it doesn't look like the second half's actually up to too much in terms of highlights. Going forward a few more minutes, and now it is Imhan who is down to a red heart. Good chance for us now to bring on Daniel Cueto, who of course scored that goal, which got us a point in that previous Hertha Berlin game. Just adjust some opposition instructions yet again. That will probably be the last time in this game as long as Wolfsburg don't grab a goal back. But despite the fact they have been on the front foot in the second half, there's been no action on the field. Racine Bullock picks up a yellow card but can't do anything about that these days, of course. No ball in the field to back up on the bench anyway. Start to make our way into the last 5 minutes. No highlights in the second half, but I don't mind that. 1-0 up against Wolfsburg. We'll now start to try and time waste just a little bit, and thankfully looks like we are holding on here to pick up 3 points, and they would be 3 big points as well. We make our way now into injury time. Hasn't been the most entertaining game, but I'm going to take that result. All the action happened in the first half, and thankfully, just before halftime, it was Albin Krasnicki who put the ball away, bet their goalkeeper at his near post, and we're going to take a 1-0 win home here, and thankfully, our away form is making up for our slight stutters at home of late. That's a big 3 points, especially against the team who are above us in that European race, albeit they're quite a fair way in front of us. You'd imagine they'll be taking part in Europe in some form next season. But as you can see, that result gets us for now into that Conference League playoff spot off the back of a good win away from home. 1-0 over Wolfsburg. We'll come back shortly and get stuck in to that second game of today's episode, which should really be one we can win against the team now in a relegation playoff position in Borussia Mönchengladbach. And we've gone forward about a week and we're about to get stuck into our second game. In today's episode, we take on Gladbach. You know all about these guys. We just played them in yesterday's episode in that cup and bet them 2-0, albeit it was with help from a red card. Also worth knowing going into this game, Yuri Bas is back, albeit is only recommended for around about 75 minutes. To be fair, that's not an issue because, of course, he is usually the backup to Dorenzo at left back. And also Daniel Cueto and Bouchouari can now play a full game. So it does mean for the first time in a while we are at full strength. And also Miguel Chaiwa is back on the bench, having served his suspension in that previous game. So we've got quite a strong team going to this game against someone down in the relegation zone at the moment. You'd like to think this is one we can pick up maximum points from, especially at home. And we might even find a way to sneak our way inside of that automatic European qualifying spot, maybe make our way into a Europa League spot for next season, albeit I'm not too sure how long we'll be able to hang on to that. We'll just sort out here some opposition instructions, make sure that no one is going to try and kill another player in terms of two-footing them. We don't need red cards in our situation here at Lokomotive Leipzig. As you can see, Cueto and Bouchouari are lacking in match sharpness. That's not surprising, but to be fair, Cueto has been making quite a good impact off the bench since coming back, and also Bouchouari isn't too bad from set pieces either, so it's quite good to have those two players available to us in this upcoming game. We're going to tell the guys who've been on a good run lately. Hopefully they impress us, and hopefully we can pick up our first win at home since early November. That is a bit of a concern. Of course, it isn't quite true because in the cup we have picked up wins at home. Yesterday's episode against these guys, but it has been a fair while in the league. We always want to keep playing well, and they are struggling. Hopefully we can beat them and pick up 3 more points in the Bundesliga. It's going to be quite interesting too in the latter part of the season. If we are trying to juggle our cup run and a run towards European football, isn't something I thought we'd be having to worry about here at Lokomotive Leipzig this season. Honestly, I thought we might just spin off the cup and then focus on trying to stay up. But then we got further up the table, did feel like maybe we could focus on the cup a little bit more. But now we're going to have to focus a little bit on European football. But immediately here, there is a kickoff highlight to Borussia Mönchengladbach. Hopefully they don't do anything here to make up for yesterday's episode, of course, when they did go down 2-10. Now Cancelari gets in behind there quite easily early on, squares that one nicely for Kurvice, but thankfully misses the target. That's a big early chance there to our opposition. Not a good start at all, but thankfully still 0-0 coming up to the 5-minute mark, and now it's a throw in here in our favour down that right-hand side. Krasnicki plays that over the top for Amadori, wins the header, but unfortunately nowhere near any of our teammates, although Racine Bullock wins that one nicely. Big chance here for Bouchouari from a tight angle. Mantle just gets enough of a touch on that to put it on the post, and somehow they clear their lines, and now Kurvice makes his way down the other end. Good slide tackle that from Gal, but now Cancelari is on the ball, makes his way inside the final third. Again, it's a bit iffy at the back, but thankfully Billy Caminio can clear that one. Very interesting highlight, good chances at both ends. Thankfully, still locked up at 0-0 for now. One good chance for us there through Benjamin Bushuari, but to be fair, Gladbach have actually had two good ones in this game so far, so I think we're quite fortunate here to still be locked up at a draw, but is there a free kick in our favour? Unfortunately, we can't do anything, and it is here Gladbach who start to march their way forward, finding lots of space here down that right-hand side. Cancelari this time plays it to Jata. Now Kavice, good tackle that time from Bullock, but somehow our players trip over each other and Gladbach are back in possession. That's a frustrating way to lose the ball. Jata gets in behind. He'll put that one away. The assistant hasn't put his flag up. If we concede a goal like that, I'm going to be really annoyed. Just sloppy play from us there, not getting back on the ball. And the goal has been awarded. I thought there might just be a stride offside, but earlier in this highlight, we got the ball back for a good tackle through Racine Bullock, but for some reason didn't act in time. And Jata opens the scoring here for Gladbach, and we go 1-0 down. And if we're going to make Europe, we can't afford to drop points at home against teams like this, because obviously these guys currently we have to try and stay up through a playoff, which would not be ideal. We're going to demand more here because it's not been a good start for us in this game. And at the 25-minute mark, another highlight starts, albeit thankfully good win there from Campanelli, and hopefully we can grab an equaliser here on the counter-attack. Krasnicki tries to take it on himself, probably should have passed to a teammate, blazes it over the bar, and we are still 1-0 down. And it's been a pretty frustrating opening to this game for us, a game that you would expect us to win based on current league position. Also just noticing there that Nicolo Amadori is on an orange injury. He might be coming off at halftime for Thibaut Clige. Hopefully he can last until halftime. Also Bushuari not playing too well, neither is Albin Krasnicki, but that was a poor first half. Should have really dealt with that danger with the goal that they did score. Had a chance to through that tackle from Racine Bullock, but unfortunately we didn't quite recover, and it was scored by Jata, and we find ourselves 1-0 down here against the team right near the bottom of the Bundesliga. Definitely going to give these guys a hard word at halftime, but also make some changes. Amadori on that injury. Thibaut Clige can come on for him, and also we might take off Dorenzo for Yuri Bas coming back from injury. He was actually in quite good form before that injury, so we'll bring him on at left back, and also Benjamin Bushuari not quite doing it today. Osman Tilgan can come on for him, and hopefully those changes can help us get back in this game. It'll be really frustrating off the back of a surprise win away from home at Wolfsburg. If we blow it in this one at home against the team in the relegation zone, we'll tell the guys they've been terrible so far, go and sort it out, and hopefully we can grab a goal at least in the second half and escape with a point like we did in that prior Hertha Berlin game. Our home form at the moment just seems to be complete upside down. You'd expect us to pick up the points at home, but for some reason that has not been the case. Going just past the hour mark, and now Luca Campanelli has picked up a yellow card. Also Krasnicki on a red heart, and Escobar on a 6.4. So some interesting choices here. I think we might try and deal with our attack. We'll have to risk Campanelli on a yellow card, but Dibbling can come on for Krasnicki, and we'll bring on Benedetti for Escobar. So those will be all 5 subs. It does mean we might have to get Campanelli here to ease off tackles for the last half hour or so of this game, which is not ideal. But fair to say things so far in this one are not going to plan. A half hour left and we are 1-0 down against the team who were in the relegation zone, albeit a throw in here off the back of those most recent subs. It is there. I think it was a Tilgan on the ball, plays that one back to Bas, gets it back. Will he try and square this? Takes the shot on himself. Cueto gets in the way. It sits up nicely for Mantel. He can make a save. That about sums up our day so far on this one, albeit now a corner. Tilgan floats this one far post for Tom Gale, and he finds the net, loops that one over the goalkeeper, and thankfully we are back in this game at 1-1, and hopefully might find a way to kick on and maybe pick up all 3 points from this game. But still, our home form of late is actually starting to become concerning. Tom Gale given tons of space from that corner, which is surprising, but thankfully we do get a chance there to equalise and make the most of it. But still, this has been a very poor performance. Our XG quite low, despite the fact we are on top in terms of shots and shots on target throw-in, but it is deep inside our own half here. For around about 10 minutes left, Comedio starts to make his way forward, but plays that one back to Ivicic. What will our goalkeeper do? Only on a 6.6 today, although I suppose it's better than the 5.5 from yesterday's episode. Now, Comedio back there to Benedetti and Tom Gale. We take our time here to build up from the back, a long highlight. I think something might come from this one. Hopefully it's in our favour. Tilgan back to Camillo. Now Campanelli in some space, dribbling off the bench. He's been very good for us so far this season. Does his man there. Poor tackle from one of the Gladbach players. Plays that one back to Campanelli. Floats one into the mixer. Tilgen gets on the end of it. Somehow doesn't go over the line. It just trickles towards it and then spins away. And it is still 1-1. What a chance that was. A Tilgen actually did pretty well to get a hit on that. Can we find Tom Gale again here from a set piece for some reason, taking lots of time on it. Unfortunately going near post, no one's home. Still 1-1 entering the last couple of minutes of this game. And it might be time for us to maybe start going a bit more attacking in terms of player roles. Obviously I'd rather get a point from this game than nothing, but we might just chuck dribbling on attack and see what that does for the last couple of minutes of this game. I think that's all we'll do. Just don't really want to suffer a loss in this game. That would be an absolute disaster. A point wouldn't be too bad, especially because that's probably what you'd expect us to get in that previous one at Wolfsburg. But it is a highlight here for Mönchengladbach. Tillman does get in behind. Tight angle. He beats the defender there. Top right corner. And now he may as well go attacking. That sucks. That is not a good way to concede a goal. It was a throw-in, and he buries that one from a tight angle. Ruggieri plays this one into the mixer. It was Kavice there, back to Ruggieri, plays a nice ball over the top for some reason. I think that is Campanelli, who doesn't quite keep up with him, and it's a really good finish into that top right corner now. We go all that attack for the last couple of minutes of this game. The wing-back can go on attack out left in Yuri Bass as well, and also Racine Bullock can go on to support. And we might also move up our defensive line to higher as well and just see if that will help out. Also distribute quickly as well and see if we can grab a goal back in this game, because this does feel like a really bad result for us at the moment against the team down in the relegation zone. We'll demand more, but it might come too late. It does, and that completely undoes our good work from that first game of today's episode. A 2-1 defeat against Borussia Mönchengladbach, and we still haven't won a league game at home since early November. That's now starting to become more of a concern than I thought. To be fair, most results at home since then have been draws. It hasn't been that bad, but that's a bad loss to a team down in the relegation zone. They might make their way back out of it now, and it does mean that gap between those teams down bottom and us is closing just a little bit. But I've got to tell them I'm far from pleased with that result against a team that far down the table. So frustrating off the back of that prior win over Wolfsburg. Maybe brought Bushuari and Cueto back into the team a little bit too soon. It was not a good result. Losing it late is particularly harsh. And yeah, that result is a little bit gutting. It does mean we drop down to 8th on the table, so not in too bad a position, albeit the likes of Eintracht Frankfurt and Freiburg do still have games in hand on us, so it does mean they could jump above us and we could slip down to 9th on the table. But it does mean we've kind of blown a chance to put ourselves in that 7th spot or better in today's episode. A poor defeat in that second game of today's episode. 2-1 at home to Borussia Mönchengladbach. So mixed results from those two games in today's episode. Very good win over Wolfsburg, which was unexpected away from home, but then we suffer a defeat to Borussia Mönchengladbach, who are still in that relegation playoff position, albeit now on 17 points. We're still pretty safe, 19 points clear of them, and we actually have found ourselves back up in 7th on the Bundesliga table. Eintracht Frankfurt, thankfully, we were playing Bayern Munich. They lose 4-0. Our goal differential is now better than this. So actually that result didn't go as badly as I thought it might in terms of our league position. Also, Freiburg lose 2-0 against Cologne. So to be fair, most teams in and around that hunt for that 7th position drop points on that match day. Still only 1 point behind Hoffenheim 2 and a couple behind RB Leipzig. But big chance for us there to really make our way into potentially a Europa League spot. But unfortunately, still in 7th. And we're still going to have to try and juggle between a cup run and potentially try and grab a spot in Europe for next season. But that will do it for today's episode. As I said, mixed results. Probably picked up points in the game we weren't supposed to and lost the game we weren't supposed to as well. Probably would have thought those results would have been switched. But if you enjoyed today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video. And if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. Come back tomorrow and pick back up in the DFB Pokal. It should be a game where you can win at home against the team from the 2 Bundesliga in Arminia Bielefeld. Hopefully as well, we continue some very good away form and can beat Mainz before then. And in that second game of today's episode, back in the Bundesliga, a tough test, we take on Bayer Leverkusen at home. Those guys handed us first part of the season, our most embarrassing defeat, 4-1 away from home before that Dortmund one in yesterday's episode. Hopefully back at home we can do a little bit better, but they will be a very tough test, but hopefully we can beat Mainz at least and keep ourselves in the hunt no matter what happens on that match day. And also we should be making our way through to the semis of the DFB Pokal by beating Arminia Bielefeld. Hopefully that will happen in tomorrow's episode. So until then, thank you very much for watching, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.
Thought I could do this, laugh through the sadness. Don't know